Alright, this time at the Quick Speed Shop, I'm steering in the danger. I'm taking the steering box and the power steering pump out of the Project Boogie van here. I gotta swap the box. My box is sloppy, don't want that. So I'm gonna swap it out and we're gonna do some other stuff. So get ready for some mechanical action. I'm digging into the van right now. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Well, hey Bam, welcome back. I'm back here working on the Boogie van, and today I'm doing some mechanical action. I was last time working on this thing. Here it is. I removed the steering column. If you're familiar with this project, this was a handicap van, and it had an electric tiller type steering wheel with this little wheel on top of it with a servo motor, and it steered the steering box. And then it had this linear actuator here on it that would bend the column out of the way so you could get the wheelchair in and out. This thing's quite heavy. I removed this last time. It bolted in kind of in the stock location with a bracket here, but it's heavy and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's kind of got some neat pieces and a little actuator, but I got that out of there, so I'm steering column free right now. Here's a steering box here, and now watch this. I discovered this, which I didn't realize. Look at all the slop in the box. My box is sloppy. What is this? Oh, that's part of the frame. So I'm stuck. There we go. The box is pretty sloppy. It's been leaking out of the lower seal, and usually you got to tear the whole box apart and take the selector shaft out and all that stuff to change the seals. So I'm not going to do that. I've got that Ford camper outside the E350. That looks like it's got a good steering box in it that's not leaking, and it's got about 50,000 miles on it. So I'm going to just pull the steering box out of that van and swap it for this one. I'll put this leaking one in that chassis out there because I don't really need it right now. So that'll save me some money. I'm getting kind of broke here on this project. So I'm probably going to do that, but I want to get the steering box out of here. I want to get rid of these lines. I can't see what they did on the back of the pump. It's kind of hidden right now. So I think the best thing to do is just to go ahead and remove the power steering box, or I mean the pump, I'm sorry. Remove the pump. It's got this big aluminum bracket that bolts to the head. I can take out 4 bolts, it looks like, and I can remove the whole setup. And I got 2 new lines since they've cobbled all these together. I've got new factory replacement lines to put on here. So I have a brand new power steering system. I also need to replace the driver's side front brake line. Is rusted out. It's got a pinhole leak in it on top of the frame. That's this line here at the bottom. You see these T's come off here. This line right here is the left front. I got to replace that too. Well, I got it apart, and I also want to do some other mechanical work. But I've got that steering column out of the way, and I can put the original column in once I set the body back down on the frame with the body mount that's in here. I'm getting real close to being able to do that. That's why I want to just try to get some of the stuff unbolted out of the way and then drop the body back down and go from there. So let me fire up some hand tools and see if I can pop this pump off. Alright, bam, there we go. I got the power steering pump out of the way. Let's see if I can spin this out of the way. So I've got the power steering box exposed. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to take the nut off the pitman arm. I'm going to knock on it with a hammer. It should pop apart. I should be able to release the taper by tapping out here and get that off. I went and I removed the lines from the box and plugged the lines. Here's the pressure line here, the one with the blue plastic plug in it. This is the return line, just a hose. I showed you how sloppy this was, so I'm glad I'm changing this out. Alright, I got my pitman arm nut loose here, and I'm going to show you a trick. Instead of using a pickle fork and like ruining the dust boot and stuff, here's a trick, and this one should come apart pretty easy because it's got oil and grease on it. You go and you strike the side of your pitman arm here, or your tie rod on whenever you want to come apart, pretty hard, and the thing should drop down. So let me go ahead and give it a couple of firm whacks, and it should come right apart here. Here we go. Use a decent hammer when you're doing it. Come on, man. Not yet. Not yet. Of course, you never want to beat on the nut because you'll ruin the nut. You just got to give it a couple of good strikes and it should come apart. It's making a liar out of me. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Released it. Bam. Now, I can save that. It didn't hurt the tie rod end whatsoever. Just leave that hang. And now we got our pitman arm loose here. Oop, don't do that, I'll have fluid coming out. Got my pitman arm loose there, and I didn't destroy the bushing. I'm sorry. So now I got the pitman arm loose. I didn't destroy the dust boot. I didn't destroy the tie rod end. Everything is good. I'll just leave this hanging right like that. And it didn't hurt the side of the pitman arm. That's cast steel. It's pretty heavy. You just put a little mark on it where I hit it, but I removed that there. Everything is good. You can feel a little bit of slop in that box there. It's probably why the seal's leaking. But there we go. Now the steering box is ready to remove. I just got to bust the bolts free and back this thing right off of there, and that box will come right off. Alright, I got the steering box out of the way. I missed it. I didn't have the camera on. I dropped it in my pan of oil and sprayed oil all over the place. So I've been wiping that up. That was a disaster. That would have been funny content for you guys to watch because it was an absolute disaster. But I got that cleaned up pretty much. This has got a lot of goo on it. Yeah, so I would go get the other steering box right now, but it's kind of rainy out. Actually, it looks like it stopped raining. The sun's out now. But it's 100-mile-an-hour winds out there. I might just go ahead and try to get that unbolted, get that box back in here. But in the meantime, I want to replace the brake line while I've got the box out of the way because it'll be easier to get to. I'm going to go dump this oil before I spill it again. Oh, there's sludge in it. Great. So let me clean up a bunch of crap and then we'll get back to this. I think one more thing I want to do in this video is I'm limiting my air injection pump here. These Ford engines in the 80s, they took exhaust from the back of the heads. There's 2 ports in the back of the heads, and they ran it. They take this air pump here and they inject air through the exhaust and blow it into the exhaust system by the catalytic converter. I'm going to disable that because I don't need it where I'm at, and a lot of times these air pumps will seize up and burn your belt up and throw your serpentine belt off and leave you stranded. So I've got a factory part from Ford Racing. It's a air pump eliminator kit for like a 5-liter Mustang. Usually they put these on, but Ford actually put these on in some scenarios in trucks where they didn't have the air injection. I've done a video, if you're interested in seeing the process, on my 5.8 liter I did on my old body style Ford truck, my 95. I did a video it's quite popular. It shows removing the exhaust manifold system and stuff and using one of these. I've done that. If you want to search the channel, or I'll put a link up here up the top for the video. I'm going to do the same thing in this van. The system's a little bit different where I can leave all the piping in place and just remove the air pump and replace it with the idler down here. So I will save the air pump in case I ever need it again, and I can just plug the line and the system should function. Well, it won't function, but the vacuum system, this is an old pre-OBD computer. I'm not even sure if it's OBD1 or if it's before that, whatever the computer was, but it's not going to look at the air injection system. It doesn't care if it's there or not. So I'm just going to eliminate the pump and put on this bypass piece. So I've got to pull the pulley off, and there's 2 bolts that hold the pump on. I'll disable the hose and I'll plug the hose, and that way the system will just be static on there. And if I ever need to put it back on, I'll just simply have to put the pump back on and be good to go. But in the meantime, we'll be idling, cruising down the road. Should be able to zip these bolts out here with my impact action. Let's see. Oh yeah, bam. Impact in action. Oh, ah. Oh, wrong way. Easy now. All right. Come on, man. Aha. There we go. Now there's just 2 bolts. There's a bolt on the bottom from the back side, and then there's a through bolt up here. I've got to remove the clamp. Looks like 5/16 clamp over here on the side, and then we'll remove this sucker. It feels pretty good. These things, the bearing seize up, or they don't really have any lubrication in them, so they've been known to seize up for years and leave you stranded. So that's why I'm getting rid of it. Going to the bearing idler. A lot less. There's no. These things really don't do anything. This is old school, like emissions technology that is pretty much worthless, and it will be better for me because it won't break down. So it's out of there. Well, this went from a good idea to a bad idea. I ended up breaking the bolt off in the smog pump, so now I've got to remove the entire works here, which luckily I got out without breaking anything else. What the heck is that? There's a bolt hiding back there that just fell down. Somebody lost the... Oh, that was the upper bolt. Probably the upper bolt. Where'd that go? Nope. It's a mystery bolt that was just laying out, hanging out in the motor. Somebody lost. Woo! So I have to unbolt this whole shooting match here now and pulled up on out of here because, oops, my pump is not releasing yet. Shoot, get off there. Nothing went right here the last couple of minutes. There we go, that's off. So now, whoop. Ta-da! There goes the air cleaner. So here's the alternator and the smog pump. Here's the alternator and the smog pump. I got to get this bracket off the back, but this bolt, this through bolt, is broken off down in here big time. So I got to somehow figure out how I'm going to get that out without breaking this bracket. That was a bummer! Dang it! Here is the smog pump valve. This is the dump valve, I think, that goes to the atmosphere. Had a broken off vacuum line that was just broke off out of the harness, so that would have been hard to diagnose. A drivability issue. Got some debris in here. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the other side of this engine. Got a new coolant line, but the bolt was wearing into it. That's not good. Dang it. Alright, good news, I was able to save the day. I got my cutoff wheel in here and I was able to cut the bolt and get the bolt out of the bracket. Unfortunately, it's still stuck in the air pump, but I'll work on that later. So this can go back in here. Actually, need to hang the other pulley on it first. But catastrophe averted. And I also put on my new plug wires, even though they're filthy now because my hands are filthy and everything's grungy. I got the new plugs and plug wires put in. That was a chore, but it was easier to get to them with the this thing out of the way. So this is ready to go back in. Just got to bolt it back up in here. But let me put the bottom piece on first. Where did that go? Everything's everywhere. Alright. Just happen to have a new 3/8 bolt that was long enough to work. Bonus. Get in there. It's gonna work out. Perfect. So I just gotta bolt that back up. You see I got the bracket down there. Everything's loose. I'll get my other bolts out and I'll zip this thing back in there. And then once I get the steering box switched over and the power steering pump bolted on, everything will be hooked back up and ready to go. Alright, got the alternator back on and the idler bracket down there for where the air pump was. I got it all bolted back together. I put some plastic wrapping on this heater hose just to keep it from rubbing on the aluminum and making a wear spot on the rubber and having an issue later. Just had some old flexible like wire loom plastic. I went and zip tied around there so that protects that. So that's back on there now. I can't put the steering box and the power steering pump back on until I make these brake lines. And I guess that's going to be the next step. And then we'll probably finish up this video for now on here. I got some copper nickel alloy brake line, the gold stuff that's easy to work with. I'm going to build 2 new front brake lines over to the rubber hoses that go to the front calipers. And then I'm going to do in the next video is going to be replacing the brakes. I'll probably break that out just so I could use it for a separate how to do a video. So I'm going to kick these brake lines out right quick and then we'll end this video. And it's going to be real simple. Here's the driver's side frame brake line for the front wheel. It laid on the frame like this. This went in the block that was on the T coming out of the master cylinder. This is the side that went out to the wheel. I don't know if you can see there, but in the very bottom of that, where is it? Right there, right by there, there's a little pinhole in the bottom of that. That's why originally when I bought this van like 2 years ago, I know I had stepped on the brakes and it blew out that pinhole. So this line is definitely shot. I got the passenger side line out here, which is a lot longer. Most of this line is in decent shape, but the end out here, same thing by where it went into the wheel, was crunchy. And when I was putting some fluid on it to loosen it up to get it to go take the nut off, I put some oil on it, and I noticed it started to leak some oil around there, so it's probably got a pinhole somewhere in it too. So I'm going to make both lines. This one's going to be a lot longer, obviously, because it crosses over the whole front of the frame of the truck. But I'll reproduce this. I'll get out the copper brake line. I'll just show you how I'm going to make the short one. It's pretty standard process if you ever done brake lines. Just flare it, put your fitting on, bend it up, and replace it. Okay, I'm over at the bench here. I've got my handy dandy awesome brake line fitting flare tool kit here. I've gone and put a nut. I bought some new nuts. I got short ones and the long ones. I'm going to start out with a long one up by the block, by the master cylinder. And I've got the 3/16 line clamped in here. Where's my oil? About ready to make a little flare. A little bit of oil on there. If you want to see how this machine works better in detail, I did a video on this on the channel like a year ago. But it works awesome. That fast, we already got ourselves a flare. Perfect. You see here the flare comes up, the fitting fits that perfect. It's like that. Perfect. This line bends very easily, makes a real nice flare. I've got a piece of tape held on here to hold the flare so it can't get away from me. What I want to do is just replicate this line with the new line. So I'm going to roll some of this out. And usually they make bending tools bend this. This stuff bends so nice by hand. I'm just going to bend it by hand here. Get my tape off here. The reason you put the tape on is to hold the fitting up so you don't lose it in case you're doing a bend. You don't want to get it on the wrong side of the bend. So the first thing I gotta do is do a 90-degree fitting down here. So I can just bend this by hand. It bends very easily without kinking it. It's got to be nice and careful. Alright, got a 90 there. I'm just going to match it up. These aren't going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to be close enough. I've got another 90 here. I got to bend down. Actually, let me get my bending tool. I've got this little bender here. I can use this to bend it around. So I've got to put another 90 in this right about here. And I'm just going to bend this line over here. Perfect. Alright, this is fighting me. So I've got that bend like that. I'm gonna tweak it just a little bit here. And I can bend it a little bit when I get it in the van. Looks like that is just past 90 here, a little bit more. Tweak it. Okay. Now, go here. I've got to make another 90-degree bend right here. Around here. And about there. Okay. Looking pretty good. I'm going to do about a 60-degree bend over here. And I'm going to cut this off so I can handle it a little bit better. There you go. Now when I cut this off, I take a little deburring tool and I just run it in there and I deburr the end of the line. You can do this with a drill bit too. Open it up all the way. And take one of my fittings, put a fitting on here before I do that. Where's the other fittings? Put a second fitting on here. I'm using a short one here. Get a piece of tape, tape my fitting on so I don't lose it. So now I can finish up bending this line here. We got our shape. We're pretty close. Looks like I need to tweak this down a little bit. Just go ahead and flare this side. There we go. Got our second flare there, so now I've got a completed line with 2 brake lines on it. I just need to bend this end down around 90-degree it down, and we should be good to go. And there we go. There's the brake lines installed. Got them cranked back here into the T. That's off the front master cylinder there. And I've snuck them around. I've got them in the factory holder here. Since these lines don't have the corrugated metal spring around them, I zip tied them to the plastic so they don't rattle. I got the driver's side one run around and dropped into the new rubber brake hose. Then the passenger side comes down around through the brackets. I added one more clamp here, a sheet metal clamp with a piece of rubber around the line to hold it, because this line's a little bit more flexible and it could fatigue. If it shook, it could fatigue and break after a while. But I've got that mounted up nice. It clears everything good there. Here in the wheel well, you can see the new steel and rubber hose that goes to the caliper. I just got it dangling right now. But the line comes around and screws right into that nice. I put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads when I cranked it down in there, so it's got anti-seize, so it shouldn't want to rust up on there. The nut, but everything is good there, brand new, and it looks nice here. Pretty much factory action-ish. Good enough for what we're doing anyways. Here's the passenger side coming around there behind the spring tower, and then right around into the new rubber hose on this side. So there we go, some good progress today. Got my smog pump eliminator kit done. Got the power steering box and the pump out of the way to get ready to swap the box on. Got 2 brand new front brake lines run and hooked up to the new rubber hoses for the front calipers. Next time I'll be putting brakes on this thing, new rotors, new seals, new calipers, new pads, and those new hoses on there. So you'll have completely brand new brakes on the front end. Then I can put some oil back in the master cylinder and see if I can get some bleeding action out of it. But a lot of mechanical action this time on the old Boogie van. She's one step closer to being on the road. So come back next time when I'm working on those brakes, and we'll work again on this old Ford Econoline, making it awesome as a Boogie van.